Hello, welcome to Dev Radio. I'm here with Tony Davis and Victor Wu, and together they're the first place team from the October Innovation Challenge Hackathon. Congratulations. It was some good work.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, so the Innovation Challenge, it's for people who are, you've just recently built these skills for building AI in Azure. You had to go through a learning process and just tell us just a little bit about yourself. Where are you at in your journey as a developer, and where does this project fit in? Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks, Matt. I'm glad to be here. Was definitely excited to hear that our project won. But my name is Antoinette Davis. I've had about, I want to say like 10 years now of experience with development. I'm a full stack developer, mainly do front end development. So I was responsible for the look and feel of how our application was. So I think we did the front end in React, some CSS, some Bootstrap, um, and that is where I kind of shine. So this was exciting for me. I think amongst Victor and I definitely learned a lot during this project because I usually sit on the front end of a lot of projects. And Victor is a rock star, so I'll turn it over to him so he can tell you a little more about himself and his experience.
How'd you get to be a rock star, Victor?
I don't know. I was doing that though right now, I guess. But yeah, I'm Victor. I just graduated from Queens College. I'm based in New York
Right on.
with a computer science degree this spring. I've only been deving since for a year or two, mainly full stack. I'm mainly more of a back end Python, like machine learning, like AI person right now. But I currently work full time at AIG as an AI engineer slash like data engineer there. But I've only recently started like 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah, my responsibilities for the project was very much to play around with a lot of the Azure AI tooling, like the language tooling, the computer vision tooling, to kind of combine those to make a somewhat decent PI like sensitivity check and like redacting a lot of that information.
Yeah. So the challenge was, with with systems where users are uploading content and putting information in prompts, Azure customers need to be sure that there's no personal identifiable information, and in this case, personal health information was key.
Sure.
And so the ask was, hey, just make a system that will kind of prevent people from putting the wrong stuff in here, and if they do, help us manage it correctly and give us some reporting.
Yeah.
We start pretty broad. What
Yeah.
did you guys do after you looked at the problem? What was the next step?
I think in the beginning I had to reach out to Victor. He was a familiar name in the list of hackers. And I think we talked about all of the different challenges that they had up there. And the one for data and data sensitivity was kind of interesting for both of us. A familiar space, definitely for Victor, more than myself. Um, we leaned pretty much on something that he was more familiar with than me. We came up with some different scenarios. Um, but the crazy part is we had like a list of things that we wanted to do. Like the project at first was really, really big. And Victor was like, no, Tony, like let's dial it back some, and kind of focus on these areas that we know we can get done. Um, Victor, if you want to tell them a little bit more about um, kind of how we started, where you started from, and what the project actually does.
Yeah, so just an overview of the project. Our project was kind of, you would input, ideally the workflow would be a user inputs some sensitive information or some document. And as a company or as like a business, we don't want to send that information past our systems. So like if we want to do data analysis with like machine learning, or if we want some AI to ingest it so we can read some document output from that document, we want to make sure that things like social security numbers, driver license, or any like PAI, personal identifiable information, is like redacted from that document. And I come from AIG is an insurance company,
Yeah.
so we deal with that a lot, and I have that like in my brain constant, like none of this information. And we're also implementing AI into our systems as well, and that's like one of the key concerns for us as a business, is not leaking any of this, because we're really regulated, and I'm sure a lot of other companies are super regulated and they don't want to get fines and they don't want to get audited. So we want to make sure that we have a system that is in our system in the first place, and then when that information leaves our systems, that all this information is redacted. So our product kind of looks at your document and then sees any sensitive information, and then just places a generic placeholder over that information. So like if
Yeah.
your name was like, one of the examples in the demo is like, I gave our product Bill Gates's resume, and we didn't want Bill Gates's name or like his address or like phone number to be shown outside of our
Mhm.
system. So it went through a workflow, and then it just placed like a very generic box and just said placeholder of like first name or last name or email address.
I like what you guys talk about. You start with a really long list of everything you want it to do. That's so typical in software development. Like you start thinking, especially if you're given a blank slate, and start thinking big, and everyone loves to. And then, but
Yeah,
with a hackathon, um, and this was kind of a long one. You guys had 2 weeks, but you've got real lives and day jobs, and you're busy. But
absolutely.
you need to kind of focus and pick. What are the right things. Just sort of as a just as a learning experience. Is this how's this experience going to kind of help you moving forward? Um, what were your kind of key takeaways from the hackathon, just as a developer?
You wanna go first,
You know,
Victor?
I can go first. I think what Matt is speaking is like very true. Is like we have so many cool features that we were thinking of, and we were like, oh, we can try to like jam this all into one, but we have limited time, and we have lives and like day jobs as well. So we really wanted to like focus in on like what was the core idea that we wanted to implement, and like what were the key challenges that we saw that were interesting, but we could also feasibly do within our time constraints and within our lives. So I think a lot of that is like feature management, like really control the features you're putting into your product, really control, like make sure it's in scope, like all
Yeah,
that like kind of project management, like feature development. I think
yeah,
it's something I'll definitely be taking away from this.
yeah,
Um, I think for me, so I had the years of experience as a developer, and I think in my new role, I've shifted over to work for um, education within the workforce development sector, and I want to get back to being a developer. So this was an eye-opening experience for me, just how much technology has changed,
yeah,
how much AI is affecting the way that developers do things now. It was great sitting in with Marlon the other day to kind of look at some of these same tools being used and how they're being used and how they're being leveraged, and just to see how his mind also works to looking at a project and looking at different features and what can you do to get to that MVP product. So I think for me, it's a um, kind of like a blast from the past experience, like a like development is changing a lot, so there's a lot to learn. But I think the way that I learn first and foremost is take a deep dive in.
yeah.
Um, so to have a challenge where I could learn something by putting my hands on the actual work was a phenomenal experience. So it's motivating, it's exciting, um, and it helps kind of curve my path to kind of where I want to do and what I want to do moving forward.
That's great. I mean, that's exactly why we do this. It's fun. Um, you know, the reason I like doing what I do is like I think we've got really cool technology, but the interesting thing is what are people going to do with it?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so it's so much fun to watch what you guys do. And you launch the hackathon, you put this out there, and you bring a bunch of teams in. You're like, wow, I hope they come up with some good stuff.
Yeah.
And I've got about 2 weeks of waiting before I'm like, okay, like you finally, and you take it out of the oven, you're like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I had
that
an
was,
opportunity to look at some of the other projects too. Like
yeah,
there were some really, really interesting pieces out there just to see how everybody
Yeah.
kinda had the same 4 or 5 challenges
Yeah.
and thought about them differently.
Mm,
It was really good to see, like, this was
mm,
a good event to be a
mm.
part of,
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, guys. I hope that if you're interested, you're certainly welcome to come back, whether as competitors or coaches,
for sure,
or both. And
for
yeah,
sure.
we'll definitely be in touch. And if there's any way I can help you guys with your journey on Azure, let me know. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Bye, y'all.